It is easy to believe things about yourself. You can believe you are disciplined. You can believe you are determined. You can believe you are capable of great things. Belief requires nothing. The moment work begins, belief is no longer enough. Work asks a different question. Not what you think about yourself, what you are willing to endure. And endurance reveals the truth quickly. When effort becomes uncomfortable, the mind begins searching for escape. You feel the urge to stop, to delay, to step away. This moment arrives for everyone. The difference between people appears in what happens next. One person negotiates with the discomfort, another continues. Work strips away imagination. It removes the story you prefer to tell about yourself and replaces it with something far more honest. Action. Because action cannot pretend. You either return to the task or you do not. You either continue through resistance or you stop when resistance appears. There is no explanation strong enough to hide that difference. This is why work reveals who you really are, not in a dramatic moment, not in a speech, not in a declaration of ambition. In repetition. The quiet repetition of effort, returning to the task again and again and again. Most people underestimate how powerful this exposure is, because repetition removes performance. On the first day, motivation can carry you. On the second day, excitement might still exist. But weeks later, only discipline remains. And discipline exposes character. When the work becomes repetitive, boring, slow, the truth begins to surface. Do you continue or do you disappear? The answer reveals more about you than any goal you claim to have. Because ambition without effort is imagination, and imagination cannot produce results. Work confronts you with something unavoidable, your real priorities. If the work matters enough, you continue. If it does not, you leave. And that decision reveals the truth about what you actually value, not what you say you value, what you are willing to suffer for. This is why work is so honest. It removes the ability to pretend. It removes the ability to perform. It replaces both with effort. And effort exposes the person standing behind the ambition. Work becomes honest the moment resistance appears. Before resistance, almost anyone can participate. Starting is easy, motivation is fresh, energy feels abundant. But the beginning reveals very little. Character does not appear in the first moment of effort. It appears when effort becomes difficult. When the task stretches longer than expected, when progress slows, when frustration begins to build. That is when the real test begins. Resistance is the moment where the mind asks a quiet question. Will you continue? The question sounds simple, but the answer exposes something deeper, because resistance creates pressure, and pressure reveals structure. Some people collapse quickly. They withdraw the moment effort becomes uncomfortable, not because the work became impossible, because the discomfort felt unnecessary. Others negotiate. They reduce the effort, delay the task, search for an easier version of the same goal. This looks like progress, but it is often avoidance. Very few people respond differently. They continue, not because resistance disappears, but because resistance does not decide the outcome. They recognize something important. Resistance is not an obstacle. It is a signal that the work has reached the point where character begins to matter. Anyone can move when the path is easy. Anyone can participate when the task feels enjoyable. Anyone can appear committed when the reward feels close. But resistance removes those conditions. Now the work asks a different question. Are you willing to continue without comfort? Are you willing to repeat effort without immediate reward? Are you willing to endure the frustration that comes with slow progress? Most people discover something uncomfortable at this stage. Their motivation was temporary. They believed they were disciplined. But discipline requires persistence under resistance. Without that persistence, effort becomes occasional, and occasional effort produces fragile results. This is why work reveals who you really are. It does not judge you by your ambition. It judges you by your response to resistance. Do you continue, or do you withdraw? Do you move through the discomfort, or do you step away from it? Resistance is the moment where identity becomes visible. Not the identity you claim, the identity you demonstrate. Because resistance strips away excitement, it strips away inspiration, it strips away performance. What remains is simple: your willingness to continue. And that willingness reveals your character with brutal honesty. If you're serious about building this mindset, follow and subscribe. Everything here is about discipline, focus, and real progress. Work reveals character, but so does avoidance. Most people believe their identity is defined by what they attempt, but it is often defined by what they avoid. The task you delay, the effort you postpone, the discomfort you refuse to face. These moments reveal priorities with perfect clarity. Because avoidance is rarely random. You do not avoid what truly matters to you. You avoid what demands effort you are not willing to give. And that truth becomes visible through repetition. One task returns again and again. It waits quietly, day after day. Each time you promise to begin, each time you delay, the pattern begins to form. You tell yourself the work is important, but your behavior reveals something else. This is why work is such an honest mirror. It does not measure intention, it measures action. You may believe you value discipline, but discipline appears through repetition. You may believe you value mastery, but mastery appears through sustained effort. When those actions fail to appear, the belief begins to collapse. Avoidance exposes that collapse quietly. It shows the gap between identity and behavior, between what you claim to pursue and what you actually pursue. This gap is uncomfortable to face because it removes excuses. The mind often tries to soften the truth. I just need more time. I'll start when things calm down. I'm preparing first. These explanations feel reasonable, but the pattern beneath them remains the same. Delay. And delay reveals something important. The work has not become the priority yet. This realization is not meant to shame you. It is meant to clarify something. Work does not lie. It reveals the truth about your priorities immediately. The things you consistently apply effort toward matter to you. The things you consistently postpone do not. At least not yet. This is why work forces an honest confrontation. You begin to see yourself clearly, not the version shaped by hope, the version shaped by behavior. And that clarity creates a choice. You can continue protecting the identity you imagine, or you can change the actions that define you. Avoidance reveals who you are today. Work reveals who you are becoming. And the distance between those two truths is where transformation begins. Work does something unusual. It does not ask who you believe you are, it asks who you are willing to become. Because effort changes people, not immediately, not dramatically, but slowly, through repetition. Each time you return to the work, something shifts. You become slightly more patient, slightly more disciplined, slightly more capable of enduring resistance. At first, the change is invisible. You struggle with focus. You struggle with frustration. You struggle with the slow pace of progress. But if you continue, the struggle begins to reshape you. Tasks that once felt difficult become familiar. Resistance that once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. And slowly, the person doing the work begins to change. This is the hidden power of effort. It does not simply produce results, it produces character. You begin to trust your ability to endure discomfort. You begin to trust your ability to continue when motivation disappears. And that trust changes how you see yourself. Because identity is not built through intention, it is built through repeated action. The person who returns to the work daily begins to see themselves differently, not as someone hoping for success, but as someone capable of producing it. This shift is subtle but powerful. The work that once revealed your weaknesses begins revealing your strength, not because the work became easier, because you became stronger. Most people stop before this transformation appears. They encounter resistance, they encounter frustration, they encounter slow progress, and they leave. But the few who remain discover something different. The work begins to change them. Their patience deepens, their discipline stabilizes, their effort becomes consistent. And over time, their identity begins to align with their actions. This is why work reveals who you really are, not because it judges you, because it exposes your choices. Each repetition answers the same question: will you continue? Every time the answer is yes, your character becomes stronger. And slowly, the gap between who you imagined yourself to be and who you actually are begins to disappear. Because the person you become is the person the work required. If this sharpens something for you, like the video, subscribe, then return to the work and let it show you who you are becoming.